right, so the second episode, I know this looks like a lot, trust me, okay? But our second episode of Leftover Makeover, we are doing, I have these old stuffed shells that I used a vegan ricotta to stuff with like other herbs and stuff that I added. And I have these leftover manicotti noodles that I never used. I cooked in an intent to fill them, and then I ran out of ricotta, so I didn't even bother. So we're actually going to make a lasagna soup with these ingredients. I have this marked down Impossible ground that I'm going to be using. You can also use, TVP or red lentils or whatever. And I've also got some leftover Follow Your Heart mozzarella and some leftover Follow Your Heart Parmesan shreds that I'm going to throw in also. So this is, again, like a fun little, we got stuff to use, let's do it. So we're going to start with chopping some onions and a buttload of garlic. And we are going to be using the Instant Pot for this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sear saute, and we're going to do it on low. And then we're going to add some olive oil in here. It doesn't need to be a whole lot, but I'm generous. I mean, we're making a decadent soup, so why not go all out? All right, so we have finely diced the onions, and we're throwing that in. So I probably added about 3 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil and a whole diced sweet onion. Now we're going to mince up all of this garlic. You can use however much you want. I measure garlic with my heart. All right, we're going to stir that in there and get it incorporated with the oil. And then we're going to turn up the heat. I'm going to turn it to medium and get those onions browned. We're just going to keep stirring this occasionally to make sure it doesn't brown too much. All right, now we're going to go ahead and add our minced garlic. We're going to mix that in, and we're only going to let it cook for another 2 minutes, and then we're going to add the Impossible. Now my Impossible I did not thaw, so it is still frozen, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to help it cook. In it goes. I'm going to add about a half a cup of water to this. I'm going to put the lid on to help steam it and get it cook faster. All right, so we got the meat cooked enough that I could chop it up. We're going to add some seasonings. I'm adding a half a tablespoon of garlic powder, a half a tablespoon of onion powder, a half a tablespoon of salt, about a teaspoon of black pepper, and a half a teaspoon of red crushed pepper. I'm going to put that right in there, and we're going to let it toast for a minute, and then we're going to stir it around with the meat. And let's mix that up in there. Get it all mixed in well. And I just added 2 heaping tablespoons of tomato paste. This is the kind I'm using. And we're going to let that cook for a second, and then we're going to mix it in with the meat mixture. All right, mix that in. The reason why we let it cook a little bit before mixing it in, just like we did the spices, is to kind of let that become more fragrant, more flavorful. And then we mix it in and incorporate all the flavors, and then we're going to let this cook for a little bit more until I feel like the meat is browned enough, and then we're going to start adding all of our other ingredients for the soup. All right, so this looks good, so we're going to start adding the rest of our ingredients. I just added 2 heaping tablespoons of these California sun-dried tomatoes with garlic and spices. Let that cook for a minute and then stir that in. All right, and then we're mixing that in with the mixture. Now I'm adding 2 cans of these San Marzano peeled tomatoes with basil leaf in them, juices and all. Now you can use diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, whatever your heart desires. This is just my preferred because I am going to pressure cook this, and I will smash them down as well. We're going to actually take these 2 cans and we're going to fill them up with water and then dump those in too. So after all that is added, this is where we're sitting. This looks good, but we are going to need to add more liquid. But right now that is good. Now we're going to add some more seasonings. All right, we're doing in this I've got 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning and 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I'm dumping that in. I know this might seem a little weird, but I'm adding 2 tablespoons of sugar. Because typically for a lasagna soup, you're using a marinara sauce, and that has sugar in it. So I have to add that little bit of sweetness to combat the acidity from the tomatoes. Now, to be fair, the tomato paste and the sun-dried tomatoes are going to be a little bit more on the sweeter side, but we just need a little bit more to help it get through. So as you can see, that already looks amazing, but we're going to need to add our liquid. Since my noodles are already pre-cooked, I don't have to add as much liquid, but I am going to have to add some. All right, so we're adding 2 more cups of water to this, just to help thin it out, because it is a soup. And I do love lasagna soup in all of its forms, but I don't like my soups to be too thick. I actually like them to be slurpy. I'm going to grab my utensil to break up these tomatoes. Now you can use this, or you can just use a potato masher. It doesn't really matter. And you actually can pressure cook it and leave them whole and then smash them after. Because what we're going to do after we're done mixing all this in here is we're going to pressure cook it, and then we're going to add the pasta, and we're going to cook it for a little bit more because the pasta, like I said, is already cooked and we don't want it to be overcooked. All right, so now we are going to pressure cook it. After we're done pressure cooking it, we are going to open it up, take a little taste and see how it tastes before I add the rest of it, see if I need to add anything else. But the ricotta, and I'm going to be adding some cheeses, they have salt. So if it's a little bit light on the salt, that's okay, because it will get saltier. But I do like it a little on the salty side. So get this ready. We're going to pressure cook it on high for about 10 minutes. So while that is pressure cooking, I'm going to cut up these manacotti. I'm going to cut them probably into thirds or fourths, just to make them smaller. I don't like super chunky pieces of lasagna noodles in my lasagna soup. And then for these guys, I think I'm going to cut them in half. And the ricotta obviously is going to come out of the shells, and that is fine because that will mix with the soup and make it even more delicious. So this is what I'm going for, I think. I cut them into thirds, and then I split it in half and cut them like that. I think that's what I want as far as how big I want the noodles. And that is what I did with the shells, just cut them in half. I think that'll work great. Okay, so pressure cooked for 10 minutes with a manual release. It looks amazing. I'm going to add the pasta noodles now and the cheese. I like that. Like, this is a little bit too big of a chunk, so we'll try to smush that. But I do like some chunky tomatoes in it. All right, so we're gonna add these guys right in there. This is gonna be so good. Give it a little mix. And then we're gonna add our shells. And in they go, my little delicious morsels. And mix that around. And then we're gonna add the cheese. I added the mozzarella, and I'm adding the Parmesan, then I'm gonna stir that around. It looks divine. This is gonna be such a treat. Just look at that. Yes. So we need to cook this a little bit more just to let everything meld and incorporate. All right, so we're gonna pressure cook this again, but we're gonna go low, and we're gonna do it for just 5 minutes. All right, and we have lasagna soup. Even the cat wants some. Look at that. And like I said, see how it's still pretty liquidy? That's how I like it. I don't want it to be too thick. Plus, as this sits, because obviously there's going to be leftovers. That's the point. It's a meal prep. It will thicken up more because of the nature of noodles. So I'm going to do a little sip and see if it needs anything else. All right, so I just sipped some of the broth, and I think it is perfect. It's perfect. Like, all the flavors melded really well together. I would say you could use maybe a pinch more salt, but I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan on top of it also. Vegan Parmesan, obviously. And some basil. And we're going to enjoy. And there you have it. The leftover makeover lasagna soup. I am so excited to dig into this. Just look at how pretty. Oh my gosh. And it tastes as good as it looks. I hope you guys give this one a try.